Let's send it back to Gino and his goalie panel.
All right. A little while ago, you guys were talking about...
Gino, before, I signed at 12:01 in 2010.
That was a fast negotiation.
Deal at 12:01. It took a minute. That was great. I was all set.
Hey, Marty, you in for this number? Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Sign. Let me get back to my Canada Day
go.
celebration. Yeah, sure. Someday you'll tell us what's going on. Listen, a few minutes ago, you guys were talking about what happens when demand exceeds supply.
Yeah.
And that's in the general market. That's obviously going on in goaltending right now. There are teams who are the haves, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have a 1A, 1B goaltender and Woll and Stolarz. And there are teams that are in huge need and would pay, maybe overpay. So here's the question. And the reason we're asking this question, because it got a little heated a few minutes ago here. Let me start with Marty. Should the Leafs be willing to part with one of their goaltenders to take advantage of a huge demand to maybe get over what they would get in a regular return to fill holes elsewhere in their roster?
So obviously I mentioned Joseph Woll earlier, and the reason why I'd be looking at trading Joseph Woll is because the plan wasn't to have Anthony Stolarz come in and play so well, number one in the league in save percentage last year, and be their number one. The plan was for Woll to be that guy. His new contract's going to kick in, 3 years at over $3 million. So it's still very good for other teams to say, that's a number we can deal with. But right now the demand is teams would be looking for. But isn't that an enormous
risk?
Wow. But it's a risk. But you still have Hildeby and you have Akhtiamov that you can say, or you can go and get a cheap backup on the free agent market. But if you're going to get a return that can fill in your needs right now, the Leafs are looking for a top six winger that can replace, I'm not saying replace Marner, but kind of fill in the top six right there. Maybe you can get that done with Joseph Woll. So that's why I'm saying if the return is what you're looking for, why not do it? You have Stolarz, and he can do a fine job.
He can do a fine job, but the most he's ever played in a season was 34 games. That's what he did last year. That's backup minutes now. That's not even starting minutes. Yes, Stolarz was fantastic last year, but they did it as a tandem. That was my biggest challenge. So, yes, that is a position of strength. And you just talked about it, Hildeby. Hildeby did not play very well at the National Hockey League level last year. He still needs some progression. I'm not even going to try his name. Akhtiamov. He's a good young goaltender. They just call him Artie. Artie's a really good young goaltender, but he needs growth with the Marlies. So if what you're suggesting is take a position of strength and weaken it for somewhere else, and now all of a sudden you're one injury away from having zero depth. So I wouldn't look at that if you're me.
All right, we need a tiebreaker. So Marty says move Woll right now, bring back a great asset, more than you would ordinarily. Noodle says no way. Weeksy, where do you land on this?
Yeah, well, my teacher, Mr. Manga, always told us at Bethune High School there in Scarborough about supply and demand, and he made us watch Venture every time when it was on to understand that, and no more applicable than it is for the goalie market. If I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, I stand pat because both goalies played exceptionally well last year in a tandem. So I wouldn't move Joseph Woll. I wouldn't move on from him. If I'm the Edmonton Oilers, of course I'd be coveting Joseph Woll. If I'm some other teams, of course I'd be coveting him as well. But if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, we're dealing from a position of strength with those two guys. Unless Felix Potvin's coming back, unless Ed Belfour's coming back, they don't have that in the net right now. But the two guys that they have played very well together. I wouldn't make the move.
My man, Weeksy, we were the same numbers, 0-0. I thought you were going to be on my team. Let's go.
But isn't this when you need to take
I'm forever on your team.
Yeah. Don't you need to sometimes take a risk? We're on a new day right now under Brad Treliving where nothing is off the table. We're seeing him getting hometown discounts. We're seeing him make deals that you thought, wow, how did he get that? Matthew Nyes, he got a great friendly contract. Is this a new era for the Toronto Maple Leafs where you're saying, no, we're going to deal from a position of strength, and this is the time for us to do it right now?
But you don't weaken your organization by doing
that.
But
Noodles, don't you have to get weaker in some areas to strengthen others?
Florida did it when they traded Devin Levi as a prospect, and then they traded Spencer Knight as a good young goaltender. They're saying we have two guys, but we need to get assets.
They have one guy who's played 159 games in the last 2 years. His name is goaltender Bob. They don't have goaltender Bob right now. You've got Stolarz, who played 34, and that's the most he's ever played in his career, and he's 31 years old. He's not 26, 27. Now, Joseph Woll played in 42 games last year, so maybe he's the guy that they can push to 55 games if he gets his body in order. I think Joseph Woll has tremendous upside, and I think Anthony Stolarz has gotten better with time. but they're good in that tandem situation. If you had a standalone guy like goaltender Bob, then you're going, yeah, trade whoever's number 2. You can see that. Spencer Knight, way you go. But in the end, they don't have goaltender Bob. They don't have a number 1 guy, a Vasilevsky, somebody who can play 60 games. It's a tandem. That's where you're going to weaken that situation.
And for me, it's a copycat league, and right now all GMs should look at what the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers and even Colorado last year revamping their crease. Like, they won 1 period away against Dallas and Mikko Rantanen getting a hat trick to advancing and potentially saying, hey, we're the team to beat in the West now. So I'm looking at be aggressive, see an opportunity, see what's out there. Just, you know what? Get the phone calls going.
On top of all this, I think one thing that should be the focus is that teams don't put enough resources into their goaltending.
Well,
you take a look at Roberto Luongo.
Imagine a goalie saying that.
Yeah, you're right, though. Leo Luongo, Roberto Luongo, Rob Tallis, they created that goaltender development program. And guess what happened? They rebuilt Bob. Yeah. They've had goaltenders that have had success.
Sean Burke in Vegas.
Sean Burke in Vegas. To me, there's organizations that need to put a lot more money into that position.
Imagine that. The Toronto Maple Leafs dealing from a position of strength in net, James.